concept of indebtedness is real. It's not as overt or as visible as it was 20 years ago, but it's very real. And there is this sense by those who design and enforce the system that you're damn lucky to be getting to Canada, and you should feel very privileged by the fact that we're prepared to even entertain an application from you.
The last application, the work permit application I had, I applied a little late because I was volunteering in a farm most of the summer and I forgot to apply on time. And I was like, okay, there's like 2 weeks or 3 weeks that I had to apply before. But I'm gonna apply and I'm gonna send a letter saying that I didn't because I was volunteering. And like the whole time I was waiting, I was just really worried that they might not approve my visa, even though I did the time studying and I've been trying to do things for the community here and I've been trying to educate people about culture and I've been trying to farm and whatever, but they don't care about that. That's the thing. Like, if I didn't apply on the time they wanted me to apply, I might just get denied and had to go back. That was really frustrating to think, okay, I didn't apply because I was trying to help your people. And there's so many things that are not normal. And we have put up with them for so long, and we think that we should keep going with that, and definitely not. There's so many things that are not okay, and that we shouldn't put up with them, and we should speak out.
The son of a Syrian refugee participated in a protest in Hamilton, and he, according to video images, he's accused of harassing that woman and physically block that elderly woman from entering an event to meet with a politician or a federal party candidate. And what happened afterwards was people online actually tracked him down, identified him, and started harassing his family, which actually runs a Syrian restaurant in Toronto. I think it's rare in general, but certainly, in the context that the public would go as far as tracking down someone and threaten his family is almost like, crime by association, because he did something wrong, No doubt, what he did, was not, right, but if the subject happened to be a Canadian, I guess my question is whether people would actually go as far as threatening his family or tracking down the family and then threatening the family. I don't know. I have my own doubt if that would happen, if it happened to be native-born Canadian.
According to the written law, according to the immigration legislation and the regulations, that racism has been extracted from the written word. It's not possible now. We live in a post-Charter of Rights Canada, and it's not possible in Canada now to have legislation today like we had 75, 100 years ago. So the racism doesn't exist in the written word, it exists in the implementation.
Someone from Europe or from any other country that is not a third world country can come with their passport because their passports are valued more because they are not a hazard. So like they don't want to stay. They are probably gonna go back because their countries are okay. So if you're from a country that is not good, you probably want to leave. You probably want to stay wherever else you are. And some people just don't want to go through all this paperwork, or they don't have enough money. That's the thing. If you don't have money, you're not gonna get it. So if they get one of them, if they get one visa, they are just going to stay illegal and try to figure it out after.
And our immigration system should be attracting people from all echelons of all societies in order to make sure that the Canadian population is diverse in every possible respect, not just racially or culturally diverse, but diverse with respect to education and income.
Right now, I'm pretty sure I'm qualified for applying for the permanent residency. That should take a year and a half maybe till I get an answer and I get the paper by itself. In my case, being from Venezuela, I need to get it very soon because my passport is going to expire in like 2 years. But after that happens, how do I apply without a passport? That's the thing. Like, it always depends on like where are you from and how the things work in your country. It's not the same for everybody. My parents are here now. They came last year. no, they don't have healthcare. They can't work. They are basically here. They are just allowed to be here. They can stay until they get an answer, but that answer can take like even 3 years. If they leave the country, they lose their application, so they have to reapply for whatever they had and come back. But they lose all the time, so they have to start over. And it's another application, it's a new one. It's like anything, when you feel that you can't leave, that you can't do it, it's worse. Like if a situation you don't like it, but you know you can quit, or you know you can leave and do something else, it makes it easier to stay a little longer. But when you don't know how long it's gonna take and you can't leave, you feel trapped. And that's what my mom is experiencing. She has been depressed. She's like, oh, my mom is there, my grandma, she's in Venezuela. She's struggling. They denied her visa 3 times. So she can't really come here. And my mom is really worried that she's gonna die and she can't go. My 2 grandparents died last year, like in 2 months difference. And my dad couldn't go. And I can see the trauma that he didn't have that closure. He couldn't go to the funeral. He couldn't see them dying.
We should be doing a much better job at making sure that those we invite to Canada and those who we put through this grueling process are well treated when they get here, and we haven't done that yet. That's the next frontier.
I do think that there are people who have an indebtedness attitude and who think that just because someone immigrates from any other different country that they are just lucky enough to be here, and that they shouldn't complain about the conditions they have or what they have to fight for in order to keep being here. And I don't necessarily entirely agree with that.
On one hand, the host community would have that expectation because you come to my house, you have to follow my house rules, and you should be grateful that we opened the door for you. And from the newcomer's perspective, they too feel that, they don't have their roots set in the new country. They are just a guest, at least at the beginning. And this is not my home. And they feel obliged to show respect and to put up with adversities and thinking that, that's justified.
My name is Supriya Aurora. I'm a 4th-year medical science student at Dalhousie University. My family is originally from Rajasthan, a small town called Ganganagar, and it's on the border of Rajasthan and Punjab in India. I didn't actually move from India. I was born in Canada. I'm 21, so I've been here my whole life. Growing up here, a lot of my Canadian friends and a lot of the community here didn't understand where I was coming from. And it's also important on the Indian side, just because my family is so cultural that they sometimes don't understand some of the things that I want to do. Culturally, education is very, very important. I think a lot of immigrant families place a lot of value in that simply because they typically come from countries where it's 3rd world, there's a lot of poverty, and they come here to establish themselves, to make a better life for their children. When I did go into the medical field, no heads were turned, no one was particularly shocked. However, if I had decided, hey, I'm gonna go into the arts, from a Canadian perspective, no one would bat an eye, but everyone in the Indian community would have been like, what are you doing with your life?
I believe there's an expectation that a newcomer is expected to forsake their heritage, forsake their belief system, and adopt, Canadian values and adopt everything Canadian.
We know that we're lucky to be here. It's why we chose to come here. But I don't think the price of that should be less humanity or less rights or being viewed as these people definitely owe something to our country because we're giving them a place.
Shouldn't newcomers be welcome to express themselves? Isn't that what makes Canada great?
They want a genuine opportunity to express themselves religiously, spiritually, politically, artistically, economically, and they can't do it in their countries. So if they get to come to Canada to do all of that, we are nothing but a beneficiary.
There was that little tug of war and kind of exploring who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with my life, and kind of also fulfilling family expectations and following through with what everyone else also believed was good for me. You know how hard your parents have worked to get you here, and so you put that sort of pressure on yourself as well. Whatever my parents are telling me, like, that's right, I do need to be focusing more on school, I do need to be putting more time and effort into this because I have all the opportunities that they didn't have. But then the opposite spectrum of that, it's like you can only say that to yourself so many times before you realize you're going against everything it is that you want. I think even socially there was a lot of guilt. If I wanted to go with my friends, for example, I'd have a lot of guilt just leaving my family. And that sounds really weird to say, but I was raised in such an environment where family is given a lot of importance. I'd be out with my friends and I'd feel really guilty. And sometimes that's okay, but I started to realize that it was eating away at me a little bit. Like, I shouldn't feel guilty for going out and having fun with my friends. You know, I was doing well in school, I did whatever I had to do at home, so why can't I go out?
There's tremendous pressure on them to both fit in and to be respectful to their own heritage.
Yeah, I would say these are just the two sides of me. And like I said, there's pros and cons to both sides. But when you blend them together, it does make the process more difficult. But I also get to experience both sides and kind of sometimes pick and choose what I like from each one and say, hey, I'm going with that. I get really excited to wear my traditional clothes because it's not something I get to do every day, but I'm also very proud of my culture, so I like to display that on the outside just as much as the inside. This is what's called a salwar suit, and the thing that makes it a salwar is the pants. They're a lot looser. There is another version where the pants are more skinny and more form-fitting, and that would be called a pajami suit. So typically, I wear my salwar suits to the Gurdwara just because it's more Sikh style, and to the mandir I'll typically wear tighter fitting like pajami suits just because that's more Hindu style. And this top long shirt part is called a kameez, and then the scarf around my neck, we call it a chunni or a dupatta, and we use it to cover our heads when we go into the temple. My parents and grandparents love to dress me up in like this type of clothing for picture days and stuff. I think at that point I was very self-conscious of it just because it was so different. But I think as I grow older, I feel like people are more welcoming of it and they question it more instead of turn it away. So that's like a nice change to see.
With all these barriers and double standards in their way, is it worth it to immigrate and call Canada home?